Today's guest is Dr. Don Livermore. He's the master blender at Hiram Walker Sons Limited here in Windsor, Ontario, where he crafts some of Canada's most celebrated whiskies, including J.P. Wiser's Lot 40 and Pike Creek. With a degree in microbiology from the University of Waterloo and a PhD in brewing and distilling from Heriot-Watt University, Don combines science and artistry in whiskey making. He pioneered the use of near-infrared technology for fermentation analysis, revolutionizing how the industry monitors fermentations. Recognized globally for his expertise, Don has earned numerous accolades, including Canadian Whiskey Master Blender of the Year in 2019-2020, Master Blender Distillery of the Year for the rest of the world, and the World Whisky Award in 2025. A passionate educator and innovator, Don created the Canadian Whiskey Flavor Wheel and authored 2 influential books and published a paper. He is a sought-after speaker worldwide, sharing insights on whiskey production, maturation, and flavor development. I hope you enjoy this as much as I do.
To it. In the background, I get a little bit of a pickled ginger note, and that's the rye. The rye,
your nose is really way more sensitive.
Get a little more spice, but that's what I'm looking for in terms of what of our spice profile to it.
Right.
Maybe a little bit of a peppery note will come into this whiskey as well.
I get that. Yeah, I've kind of lived by this process for the last probably 15 years of like, you're either growing or you're dying. There is no like stagnation. The moment you stop doing something, you're losing ground on your competitors. You're losing ground on just the things that you did in before innovation, all of it.
Yeah, and we outsold everybody. Everybody caught up to us. What happened? Today we're number 4.
Why is that? We're here at the Wiser's Experience Center with Dr. Don Livermore. I'm really excited about this conversation today. I love drinking alcohol. I love learning about alcohol. And so as we do a couple tastes, I'm really interested in learning about your process, sort of how you've created this flavor wheel. We're going to get into a lot of different things, but I know you're from Listowel, Ontario, born and raised. When did you come to Windsor? When did you know this was what you wanted to do? And was being a master blender something you always wanted?
Yeah, I'm Dr. Don Livermore, master blender of the Hiram Walker Distillery. I've been here almost 30 years, which has been quite the career path, certainly. And I started out in small town Ontario. Listowel is about an hour north of Kitchener-Waterloo. To give you context, I grew up in a rural community. I decided to take the path of going into the sciences, and I did my undergrad degree at the University of Waterloo in microbiology. By all intents and purposes was to largely get into the pharmaceutical industry. That in the 90s at that time was, about microorganisms and DNA technology kind of things. Genetic engineering was kind of what the career path I wanted to get into. So upon graduation, I ended up at the Harrow Research Station for a little bit, working on what they call was fire blight in apples, which was a microorganism. That was my degree. And I had a good friend of mine that pointed out, hey, they're hiring a microbiologist at the Hiram Walker Distillery. Would you be interested in applying? And I applied, interviewed, and I've been here all that time. So
been here ever since.
Ever since. And the distillery has an excellent education policy, and I took advantage of it. They paid 100% of my tuition, and through the years, I went and did my Master's of Science in Brewing and Distilling, and I did that at Heriot-Watt University, which is in Edinburgh, Scotland. Brewing and Distilling. Think about where you do that. Scotland makes some sense. And then I continued on and with the PhD, and I defended my PhD in 2012. And the same week I defended my PhD, that was the week I got promoted as the master blender of the site. As the master blender, I invent whiskey. That really is in a nutshell what a master blender does. So you think about all those career paths out there and all the things and food and all the different things, and people have to invent
microbiology's everywhere.
Microbiology's anywhere. So if you kind of looked at my career path and looked at microbiology, it's a microorganism consuming a substrate, turning it into something, whether it be in the pharmaceutical industry, which was what my intent was, or whether it's yeast turning carbohydrate into alcohol. It's the same principles that apply. So certainly was not a career path I intended. I had no idea what a master blender was, or nor did I really drink whiskey when I got this job. But certainly it's
now
evolved.
Do you drink often?
I'll certainly
more on the job and tasting, or
for sure both. If I'm not doing my job, if I'm not looking and evaluating my own products, my own things, and other people's products as well. I mean, it's part of what I look at as a master blender. The thing I think the best skill for me in my career at this point is listening to the consumer, understanding what consumers are looking for, having that big picture thinking, and making sure I'm putting away an inventory of whiskey that I can use, or even if I plan to retire, I got to keep the whiskey inventory in a better position than I first found it.
Right.
So I got to be able to understand what consumers are reaching for, what resonates with them, what they might resonate with 5, 10, 15 years into the future.
Yeah, so. I was reading the article about, I think it was a CTV News article, you being awarded Master Blender, Master Distiller, at the World Whiskey Awards in 2025, which is awesome. Congratulations.
Yep.
And that article talked a lot about just what you're talking about, meeting with people, whether it's here, whether it's coast to coast, Victoria to St. John's, whether it's in the United States. And obviously we're going to get into the flavor wheel that you created, but how does a master blender really take something like whiskey that has to be, kept, I believe for a minimum of 3 years in Canada, right? Mm-hmm. How do you forecast out what people are really wanting to drink later, but that you have to do it now?
Yeah. I'll start with probably a little bit of a hot button topic. Okay. Today, in Ontario, I know the bourbon is an issue, that it's not on the shelves. Unfortunately, okay. That's the way it is today. But I think it really does kind of start there when we're talking about innovating whiskey. If you look at the category of bourbon, they'll put the grains together. So they'll put corn and rye and barley malt together. They distill it together, ferments it together. You got your product. And that's the way it is. Canadian whiskey is the opposite. Canadian whiskey ferments corn separately, rye separately, barley separately, wheat separately, distills it separately, ages it separately, and they put it together at the end.
Okay.
That allows us to be flexible in the things that we can design as a recipe.
Right.
The analogy I like to give to people is think of that Home Depot when you go and reach for that paint can. We all know they come in and get the white can, they add their ink, shake it up, you got the color you're looking for exactly. That's Canadian whiskey. Right. Whereas bourbon would have to have all the colors up there. Once you put the ink in the can, you can't take it back.
Can't take it back out.
So when designing whiskey and thinking about the future, if I can isolate the ingredients as much as I possibly can on the grain level, on the yeast level, or even on the cask level, I can then bring it together as a recipe, how consumers are looking for it. So it's making sure I have a good painter's palette, if you really want to put it that analogy, for those people to work with. And that's one of the things.
Yeah, because by breaking them up, you're mixing them after the fact.
Yeah.
Which allows you to really say, okay, how much of this do I want? How much of that? Is that kind of how you created this flavor wheel?
Well, the flavor wheel was created. I got challenged by the LCBO in 2016. I'd say, can you bring out a flavor wheel for Canadian whiskey? And because we have consumers that like flavor wheels. And I said, well, I don't really use one for my job. They're not really practical to me. They really do just describe the flavor descriptors to people. That's what whether it's a wine wheel or whiskey wheel, or I've seen many versions of coffee wheels and things like that. I said, it doesn't help me well, Dr. Don, can you put one together? And I said, I put pen to paper, and I came up with this one because it is the mindset of a blender. Right. It starts at that center of that whiskey wheel where it has three components, which is the yeast, the grain, or the wood. Those are really the three areas when you're making whiskey that I can look at. The second ring of the wheel shows you how I can manipulate those things. So I can change the grains from corn to wheat to rye to barley, get different flavors in your whiskey.
Right.
I can burn a cask a certain way to develop flavor in your whiskey. Whether I burn it a lot or toast it, you can develop each of those compounds. I can finish a whiskey. So finishing a whiskey means I'm taking it from one barrel type to another barrel type, because barrels act like a sponge.
Right.
What was in a barrel beforehand can seep into your product, and you can develop flavors in your whiskey that way. And certainly age longer you put in a cask, you'll certainly develop flavors as well. Yeast is like human beings. They'll react differently under the different conditions. So if I change the temperature, the pH, nitrogen levels, oxygen levels, yeast will make fruity, floral, green grass, soapy, sulfur notes. Okay. Sulfur's not good. I think we've all probably had a skunky beer or skunky wine at some point. Right? That's the sulfur component. That's a sign of a poor fermentation.
Okay.
Right. So we have ways we can manage that by changing yeast strain or changing the variables around yeast. The third ring of the wheel is what our consumer cares about. What does your whiskey taste like?
Right.
Does it taste like a banana, pear, caramel, toffee, spicy, clove, ginger? The outside ring of the wheel is what I care about, which is the molecular compound that causes the flavors in your whiskey.
Because you're a microbiologist.
Microbiologists or chemists. Chemists worried about that as well.
Yeah.
The microbiology part would be just the yeast part, but certainly the burning of a barrel or the tight grain types, agronomists get into that. So there's many different types of skill levels you need to know when you're making whiskey. Not only microbiology, that's just 1/3 of it.
Yeah.
And so you're now talking about grain, and I'll talk about burning of barrels.
And so what do you think, I don't know how many master blenders there are. There's probably lots. What do you think separates you from others?
The Hiram Walker Distillery, I would say, I know it's a Windsor pride. I'm going to say it's probably one of the most unique places in the world.
Yeah.
I'll have writers that come through the facility, and they say, we didn't realize you did this in the site. Usually when you go to a distillery, they're making one or two different things like a whiskey, or you may go to another distillery, they're making a gin or rum. They're kind of dedicated to what they're doing. Right. But within the walls here, at the Hiram Walker Distillery, we're not only making whiskey, we're making vodka, we're making rum, we're making gin, we're making the whole liqueur line, the McGuinness liqueur line. Right. It is just a fantastic place, and the amount of stuff we can make is quite incredible. Yeah. When I have writers around this world, they said, we did not realize that this happens here. I think it's something Windsor should be very proud of. It's a very iconic distillery. We all know that. Yeah. But it's a story that we need to get out there and tell, is that the Hiram Walker Distillery is incredible, and we got some very skilled people here at various functions of making the whiskey.
Well, yeah, and in reading that article, one of the things that I really loved, because I think it attests to business people, even, C-suite executives similar to yourselves, people in positions of leadership, that it's not just about you. You're like, it is everybody here that works at Hiram Walker Distillery that is making you look good, right?
Absolutely. I mean, I'll go back to the skill levels you need to have here. And not only do you need the master blender, you got to have somebody strong in microbiology. You got to have somebody strong in chemical engineering, because you're running distillation. You need a chemist. You need agronomists here. You need a lot of things are digitally controlled. So you need digital control systems people and IT support. All the way from grain to glass. I mean, you got people that are mechanical engineers and mechanically that are running bottling lines. So you're only as good as your weakest link. And like you said, I firmly believe we got world experts here, and that our city doesn't even realize, I would agree that they do. Yeah.
Yeah. I think until I moved here in 2018, I honestly didn't even know that this place even existed.
Yeah. Most of Canada. And that's the function, I think, of part of my role too, is being that, a public relations piece, getting out there and telling our story about where Canadian whiskey has come from, where we are today and where we are going. And I think it's very important to our consumer, because I think it's something we should be very proud of. Because I think we got some of the best whiskeys in the world that we just not telling out there. We probably lag behind the world of Scotch and bourbon, where they've gotten people to tell their stories quite well through the 90s and early 2000s. In Canada, we just really hadn't done that up until this point. And I think our story is just as rich, if not better. And we just got to get out there and tell it. And our whiskeys hold up. They win awards all the time coming out of this facility.
I see that. There's a bunch of different awards on the back there behind you. And so speaking of that, let's get into, let's say, one of the first tastings. So I mentioned to you when we set this up that I'm a bit of a Scotch drinker. So I'm really interested to learn a lot more about whiskeys. As you mentioned, it is a Canadian thing. We should be proud of it. So I'm excited just to learn for myself even.
Yeah. So this is one that I'm certainly proud of. This is the Wiser's 10-year-old. Okay. This is what I would call as a traditional style Canadian whiskey. Okay. A lot of the way I would like to describe Canadian whiskey is that it's like the dish curry chicken. Okay. Seems an odd statement, but it really does. So the dish curry chicken, what is the main ingredient to the dish curry chicken? What is the main substance to it? Chicken. Chicken is the main substance. So for us, when we distill corn and rye and wheat separately, we're largely made of corn. We always have been, and that's the chicken part. Okay. The rye is the curry. Okay. So when you go to a restaurant or order the dish curry chicken and take out, they'll probably ask, well, how spicy do you want it? Do you want it as a 1 or do you want it as a 10? Right. Rye is our spice. Got it. Okay. Rye is what makes Canadian whiskey unique, because it's a type of grain that grows in the Canadian climate.
Okay.
And it'll grow in sandy soil, swampy soil, rocky soil, won't go past 25 degrees Celsius. And it grew here. And a lot of the original distillers would use that as the component that gives it flavor to this whiskey.
Okay.
Whereas corn's the very light, sweet style to it. So we can dial up those flavors, up and down. So this is a traditional style blend. It contains corn and rye. And if I was to compare my whiskeys that we make at this distillery, I would call this a 4.
Okay.
In terms of a spicy level.
Okay. Only a 4. Okay.
Yes. All right. Cheers, eh?
Cheers.
Yeah, cheers, eh? There you go. So when you nose the whiskey, bring it up to the nose, you're going to get a nice caramel, vanilla, because I do have a lot of new wood as a content of this recipe.
Okay.
I'm going to get some dried fruit because I do age it in once used bourbon barrels.
Yep.
Bourbon barrels will bring in the bourbon from the previous fill to give that flavor to it. In the background, I get a little bit of a pickled ginger note, and that's the rye.
Your nose is really way more sensitive.
Get a little more spice, but that's what I'm looking for in terms of what of our spice profile to it.
Right.
Maybe a little bit of a peppery note will come into this whiskey as well.
I get that.
This would drink similar to a low rye bourbon.
Okay.
Right. So when they make a bourbon category and they put the ryes in together, 20% rye and above is a high rye bourbon, 20% and below is considered a low rye bourbon.
Okay.
So this would target any type of whiskey that's like that.
Let's see. Cheers.
This has been Canada's top whiskey innovation over the last 18 to 24 months.
Okay.
It's increasing in sales, which is good to see, in a category where sales are stagnant.
Right.
So that means we are taking sales from others out there, which is good for us here at the distillery. And we are seeing that those low rye bourbon drinkers coming in and purchasing this whiskey here.
It's interesting to me because I can smell sort of that pepper that you were kind of talking about, but it doesn't taste that way to me. It actually tastes pretty smooth, and that's actually kind of a
very smooth. And then you get a little bit of warming through the chest, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the rye.
Okay.
That's the rye. So you can always tell how much rye a blender has thrown into the recipe by how long that sticks on your chest.
Okay.
We call that the Canadian hug.
Right. The Canadian hug. I like that.
The Canadian hug, right? So
interesting.
We all call them rye whiskeys. Like I said, you could have a little bit of rye or you could have a lot. It's all curry chicken, right?
Right.
Just depends how warm you're looking for it.
Got it.
And I would say one with this whiskey here, I think why it does so well is it's the price point. This in Ontario here, I don't know where your audience is maybe tuning in from, but it sits around the $35 mark for a 10-year-old whiskey.
Okay.
Which is very good value. So you're talking a 10-year-old whiskey, you're not breaking the bank, great value, nice flavor profile, and I think it's very versatile. Yeah. So you can have it neat like we're really having it here. You can throw an ice cube at it, it'll stand up equally as well, or you can put it into a cocktail. And that's the thought when designing this whiskey.
And so aged for 10 years, you guys have out in, is it Pike Creek?
Yep.
Right? How much are you guys, keeping in inventory there? And what would you say is the longest thing you've got there right now?
So at the facility today, we have 1.5 million barrels at the site. It's a site is the size of 132 ice hockey rinks to give you context.
Whoa.
Yeah.
It does not seem like 132 ice hockey rinks.
Yeah, it's just the ice surface, not the physical building of the arena, but it's 132 hockey rinks to give you, and we stack them 6 barrels high.
Okay.
So that facility, we will have whiskey anywhere from 0 years of age because we're
just doing it
now, all the way up into we got ages into the 40s.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So, largely the inventory is probably 10 and less, but then we got our high end whiskeys that we will sit there for some time.
Right.
The interesting part about the Pike Creek facility is that we don't store all of the inventory the same age in one of the warehouses. We got 16 buildings. Okay. So we spread out the inventory just because of the disaster mitigation.
Right. I was going to say, what was the purpose? Either it's got to be disaster in case something goes wrong. You don't want one entire thing being taken out.
Who knows? I mean, you're on the flight path of the airport, knock on wood.
Right.
I mean, things like that, or, alcohol is very flammable. Right. So that could have, so you want to make sure if something were to happen that you don't put all your eggs in one basket.
For sure.
So that facility is quite unique. And the other thing I would say about it is, what makes the terroir part for me in whiskey is where it's aged.
Okay.
So what makes Windsor, Ontario unique? We know we get very hot summers.
Yep.
Very humid. We all know that living here. In the winter we get cold, and it's largely because of the lakes. We're right in the middle of the lakes, right? So it's a very unique situation. And inside those warehouses, they're non-temperature controlled.
Okay.
So they don't control the temperature. You put electricity inside of a warehouse, goes boom.
Right. That would make sense.
So you, whatever the outside temperature, so we get the natural fluctuations of temperature of the whiskey. So I've measured the liquid inside the barrel in July, and it's around 28 degrees Celsius, kind of what I measured it at. The same liquid come February will be -5.
Wow.
So
does that do anything for the process then?
Absolutely. And what happens is as barrels breathe, they expand and contract. And when oxygen touches ethanol or alcohol itself, it turns it into a green apple flavor. Green apple flavor just develops over time. And if you remember science class back in high school, a little bit, when they warm up a solution, right, reactions go quicker.
Yeah.
So the warmer the whiskey, the faster that green apple flavor develops. So wherever you are located in the world, if you are located in the Caribbean, you're going to make a lot of green apple flavor.
Right.
If you're located in Scotland and Ireland, they're probably certainly a lot less. So we're somewhere in between all that. Okay. So it develops a unique flavor profile to the whiskeys we make here in Windsor, Ontario.
Right.
So I don't know what styles of whiskeys you normally drink, but I find myself personally, I kind of like bourbon in kind of the 8-year range. I kind of like Canadian whiskey, the 10 to 12-year range. Okay. I probably like Irish whiskey around the 18-year range, and maybe Scotch up into the 25, because it's that it's my sweet spot for that green apple flavor formation.
Okay.
Right. The downside of all of this is that barrels are porous and you lose to evaporation. Right. So we will lose 3% a year.
Wow.
So on 1.6 million barrels, we lose 48,000 barrels equivalent. A year.
Right.
Just our distillery, they call that the angel share.
Yeah. Yeah.
The angel share. That's what they call it.
Yeah.
So for the angel share, we will probably have our distillery work 6 weeks for free.
Oh, wow. Okay.
But that's the nature, and that's the terroir, and that's the uniqueness to Windsor, Ontario, to give the flavors in the whiskey that you just had.
Yeah. Okay. That's really unique. And so again, coming back to that article, one of the things I really enjoyed again, reading was you mentioned the history that Hiram Walker has and JP Wiser's and all this kind of stuff. You mentioned in the article about the legacy that those gentlemen had left for us here with this facility, with what they were doing and all that kind of stuff. I have an interesting question. I don't know if you've been asked this before, but what do you think you want your legacy to be if and when you ever move on from being the master blender here?
Well, the legacy, what was left with me was from the original producers of Canada. So that's Hiram Walker, who was an American who lives in Boston, moved to Detroit. And if you know where the GM building is today, that's where he ran a grocery store, a mercantile shop. Okay. And what he had done is he sold moonshine out of the mercantile shop. And if you've ever had moonshine, doesn't taste so well. No. I don't know what possessed Hiram Walker do it. He'd take that moonshine, you'd run it through charcoal. And that would take out a lot of those impurities that you don't like in that raw style whiskey. Sold it out of his store, wanted to build a distillery. So he built the property here. I bought 400 acres for 1,300 pounds in 1856. Wow. So he came over and started this site and that way. If I look at JP Wiser, he was an American as well. He lived in Ogdensburg, New York, which is right on the St. Lawrence Seaway. He was a cattle guy. He sold and traded cattle. He was the first North American to sell cattle to the United Kingdom. He had over 60,000 head of cattle at one point. Wow. And he bought a distillery in Prescott, Ontario, which is just east of Kingston, for the purpose of growing cattle. He knew the waste from the distillery, which is quite incredible. Yeah. It's quite incredible that he knew that. And you know that odor you get in the air today? We still do that. That's us drying down the leftovers into a high protein feed. Really? Which we sell back. Okay. So when you have a glass of whiskey and a piece of steak, that's the circle of life. Right. All right. Wow. Okay. So he was ingenious in that. And you look at Henry Corby. He was another early distiller that he ran a bread baking business around Belleville, Ontario, and a corn shipping business. So it was a natural spin-off to do a distillery. Right. And you look at Gooderham Works, the distilling district in Toronto, if anyone's been to that there. They were millers. They came to Canada from the United Kingdom to run a milling company.
Wow.
And the leftovers from the milling company, they then turned into whiskey. And all these gentlemen would set up a category that they knew their drinker did not want to drink moonshine anymore.
Right. Yeah,
So-
moonshine is pretty tough. I
so-
went to school in Kentucky, and it's quite a big thing there. And yeah, it's not very easy.
So I'm going to circle back. So what they did for us
Yeah.
is that they wanted to make their whiskey taste lighter and smoother. If you've ever noticed that Canadian whiskey tends to be lighter and smoother than the counterparts to bourbon or maybe a peated scotch, things like that. They worked on methods to distill.
Okay.
That's what their consumers wanted in the 1860s. And yield between, about a period of 30 years, each of those distillers invented their own ways to distill, double distill, triple distill, to make their whiskeys taste lighter and smoother. And that's why we have a brand like today, like Wiser's Deluxe, is a very traditional light style whiskey.
Right.
This is probably a little bit more of a rye flavor to it. But that's what they left. That's what their customers wanted.
Right.
So what will my legacy be?
Yeah.
That's what I got to read into to what they're doing. And I think we're in a area of premiumization, customization. I think we're into experimentation, curiosity, drinking better quality, not so much volume.
Yep.
So those are the things I'm playing with today. If I look on my flavor wheel, so what are the strings I can pull? Certainly with Canadian whiskey, it's probably finishing it.
Okay.
So putting it into Oloroso casks or putting it into port casks, things like that, getting those flavors, because consumers understand a barrel.
Right.
They physically get it. They see it. So that's a quick win for me if I'm going to leave my legacy as to what we're going to do. I think I'm going to work on probably the other two parts. I know I'm going to work on those other two parts of the whiskey flavor wheel, which is grain. So I do look at some things with grain to make sure I have them in the inventory.
Okay.
And then yeast strains as well.
Okay.
I don't think our consumers are ready for it today.
Yeah.
But my view, probably this current moment, if I was to retire, I think my legacy is probably bringing a lot of Canadian whiskey into finishing or moving them into those types of barrels.
And how come you think they're not ready for it just yet?
So I'm not understanding. You physically see a barrel.
Okay.
People see a barrel.
Right.
They physically understand it. The
Yeah.
first thing they probably think when you say the word whiskey is a barrel. I think that's why.
Yeah.
I think it will take some education, stuff like we're doing here today.
Yeah.
Start talking about grain, how important, especially to this region.
Yep.
90% of our grain comes from within 60 miles here.
That was going to be one of my next questions was going to be how much does Hiram Walker take in from our local community?
It comes from Essex, Kent County.
Okay.
Our rye comes more from where I grew up, around the Listowel area or the North Shore of Lake Erie.
Okay.
They tend to just grow there, but certainly the rest of the grains we'll get from Essex, Kent County.
Yeah.
It sounds great from a marketing point of view. Really does come down to economics.
Right.
So we're very vested in with our growers.
Yeah.
So we are looking at specific hybrids of grains for looking for different flavors.
Okay.
We're looking at regenerative farming techniques as well, which is great for carbon footprint and the environment. So we are looking at that on the grain aspect with them. Yeast, I got some things with yeast that I'm really looking at as well.
Yeah.
Whether the consumer will be ready for that, I'm not sure. My job is to at least keep it there. But this moment in time, certainly I would say the finishing whiskeys will be probably where my legacy will stand at.
Okay. Okay. And so what would be next after this then?
Well, you talk about legacy. Let's do that.
Yeah. I'm interested here.
Let's do that. So this is Wiser's legacy.
Okay.
You see that there. Wiser's legacy.
200th birthday. Wow.
Yeah. It is for the 200th birthday of JP Wiser. So a year and a half ago, the LCBO approached me and asked me to do a special release for Ontario.
Okay.
Okay. And I said, that's perfect because I wanted to recreate the Wiser's legacy. So Wiser's legacy was first produced in 2007 by the previous master blender. And it got traction. It was it was kind of our first crack at kind of real premiumized, JP Wisers. Okay. And when it's a premiumized, you'd sell it for a nice price and people buy a bottle and drink it a couple times a year. So it kind of sat on the shelves and got a little dusty. So last time we made that was 2016.
Okay.
But if anybody knows Dr. Don, bring back legacy. And it kind of fit when the LCBO asked us, can you do a one-time offering for this year? Because JP Wiser the person, turned 200 years of age on October 4th.
Okay.
So we wanted to celebrate that anniversary at the same time as a
Very
limited release.
Yeah.
We made 700 cases of this for Ontario, and we just released it now. It only can be sold at the LCBO.
LCBO. They're probably not going to last very long, I assume.
No, it's been selling quite quickly, especially here in Windsor, because our own employees know exactly what this whiskey is.
Absolutely.
It is a 10 and an 11 year in a blend, so it has rye and corn in it. I would say on the curry chicken scale, this is probably a 6.
Okay.
So it's got
a little bit more than that.
Yeah.
Okay.
A little more rye. And the one change I did with it too, and you might be able to pick up on it, it's got a little bit of a nice fruity character to it. The rye that I put into this blend, I've aged in a mix of tawny port and ruby red port casks. Okay. So you will get a nice, interesting wine, those wines.
I was going to say,
you know, some of those, a little bit of that jammy, maybe raspberry kind of notes that certainly come into that.
Yeah.
This sits at 45% ABV, and this is just, I think, a well-known whiskey that our Wiser's fans love. Yeah. Just absolutely love it.
Yeah. Interesting.
Cheers.
Cheers. Again. That's really good. Yeah. I expected it to be, I don't know. I was going to say harsher, but it's still pretty smooth. Like
You're probably a little more longer in the chest, right? The Canadian
still longer in the chest, and again, I have not drank too much whiskey for being Canadian, really. I didn't expect these to taste as smooth as they do. I don't know why.
A lot of people at Canadian whiskey, we have some of the best people in the world that reiterate that knows how to make whiskey. And it's just a matter getting liquid in the lips to getting our story out there on the good things that we make here in Windsor, Ontario.
Yeah, for sure. And so tell me a little bit about how you grew up then. So born and raised Listowel. Did your parents teach you a lot of this like creativity, get you into the microbiology and the sciences and stuff like that? Is this something you learned on your own? Where did this come from?
Kind of learned on my own. My dad was a phys ed teacher. My mom was a piano teacher.
Yeah.
I grew up very rural. I grew up outside of Listowel in a town called Fordwich, which is 300 people. I went to Listowel High School, but, I whiskey and brewing was nothing part of the life that we're doing.
Right.
I think I just naturally gravitated to the sciences. I had a influential teacher at high school, a biology teacher. He was my football coach of all things too, but he made me love biology, and that's where I went to the University.
I was just about to ask. So we ask a lot of people about like mentors and stuff like that they've had. So as a master blender, what do your mentors look like? Have you taken after certain people? Obviously, you were here when the last master blender was here. Do you have any other of those mentors that you bounce ideas off of or ask questions of and stuff like that other sort of, I'll say business owners do, in your field of expertise? I
would describe I don't know if it's more of a mentor relationship, but I would describe two things. I'll go maybe back in a bit, but I'll also describe it this way. I look at my job as a funnel.
Okay.
So my boss, when I got to be the master blender, at the time, he said, "You're going to be the keeper of history." I said, "No problem. I can be a keeper of history. I can memorize the history of Canadian whiskey. No problem." He says, "That's not what I meant." What he meant by that was I got to understand why we do stuff. Right. Or why we don't do stuff. And I got to be able to translate that to the next generation that follows us.
Right.
You got to remember why we do this. So you are the keeper of history. And that kind of led me to the point that my job is as a connector. I connect to many different places and many different people. I'll connect to agronomists, I'll connect to microbiologists, I'll connect to distillers, I connect to barrel makers, I'll connect to the IT department, I connect to the finance department. My job is to bring everything together. I get ideas from them, and then I got to be able to take it and make it a concept that fits everybody, whether it's marketing or sales or finance. I got to be able to, what goes in this bottle, be able to connect. And I think that's as a mentor. I'm not sure if it's like quite so much as a mentor relationship, but connecting to all the stakeholders and bringing it to life together.
Right.
I think that's how I would describe the master blender job. The other thing I was going to say about the master blender job is, and you kind of led to it on your legacy question, is I think we're going to have each of us has a moment.
I would agree.
And what is your moment as the master blender? I can go back to the lineage, back to the post-prohibition. So that the guy, C.S. Buroff was that was the master blender at that time. He would have dealt with growth and post-prohibition and World War II, that sort of thing. And the person following him was the 70s. And that was huge growth in whiskey. Whiskey was most popular drink.
Yeah.
And then Mike Booth was into the 80s, and Mike was the blender at the time, and he was mass contraction. So he had to deal with that.
Yeah.
So he had whiskey contract by 40% in the 80s. So I always felt kind of bad with Mike in a way. He really towards the tail end, he could innovate a little bit, but his was probably all about age stated whiskeys because it was going through contraction at the time.
Right.
My predecessor, Dave Doyle, he went through Y2K. So I think his strength really was bringing the digital aspect to making whiskey. And I mean, he was stellar at programming and making sure the blends are appropriate and everything else. So we all have our moment.
Absolutely.
And then I have to funnel those things all together to make it come together, is to make sure we're hitting our sweet spot in the right point in the right point in time. So I don't know what my moment will be. Like I said, I think a lot of it is innovation. I'm going through a craft. I went through a period of growth and everything. So well, let's see where I went through COVID too.
COVID for sure. I mean, that must have changed. How much did that change?
Oh, you spiked, and then now that's a decline. So it's a real, people are pantry loading, they called it.
Right.
So innovation's real quick, and ultra premium whiskey's real quick, and then we're now on the underside of that. So hopefully we'll come back and kind of see where we're going with the growth. But
yeah. And so you're talking about period of growth. I'm a huge believer. I think most business owners, most self-employed people are, that growth is something it's just needed if you're wanting to be in a better place, if you're wanting to be a better person, if you're wanting to do all that stuff. What kind of growth things are you working on right now for yourself in this area that I'll say you seem to have mastered? I don't know if that's even really a true thing that you can just master it completely, but what's sort of the growth for Don right now?
I'm here for almost 30 years. I think I still have the mantra, I got to leave the inventory in the better position than I found it. Yeah. There were quality issues that, stumbled for years. And I think we finally come to resolution on it. There are, innovation things we stumbled for years, and then we kind of come to a conclusion to that. So I think it's about setting that stuff up. And I think the other side of it for growth is, you kind of touched on the word mentor, is I got to be able to transfer that knowledge to the next person. So that one I struggle with, to be honest with you, in terms of how that's done. Yeah. I find even if I go back into our archives and look at technical manuals that were put together by my predecessors, man, they were studying that because that's the same problems we're having today. And how come I didn't know about that and how they solved it? Right. So there's a transfer of knowledge that tends to be an issue in terms of when you have a company of 160 years plus. Yeah. I think my conclusion of it today, if I was asked, is be a storyteller ad nauseum. Okay. Because I think that's how the previous master blender, I still can hear him in that, no, you can't do that. You could do that. This is the way you do it. I could still hear, and that's the best way I actually learned is by his telling the stories of what to do and what not to do. Right. And I try to pull people aside, whether they're in the quality lab or whether they're in the engineering department or whether they're, this is why and this is what I remember when. Right. I'm sure I get the eye rolls from people. Yep. But I think storytelling is the way. And I think if you're asking me what's growth for me, I think my growth is having others around me growth, to be quite frank. And if I was to give my 25-year-old self advice, as I do today, I think I would tell myself, don't keep the knowledge to yourself. Right. In my early career, I developed a technique that changed how fermentation analysis was done in the industry, period. I'm going to walk away from this business. I've won Master Blend of the Year. I've won this, but I've invented a technique in the late 1990s, early 2000s on how we actually monitor fermentations. And I've spoken around the world at it, wrote a book on it, but I kind of kept it to myself. They'll never fire me. They'll never let me go because I'm the only guy that knows how to do this.
Yeah.
I think that was a mistake. But I used to tell people that, now make sure you get other people knowing exactly what you're doing, because then you can grow on to the next thing you want to do.
And someone might even be able to make it better too.
That's right. That's right. But at the time, 25, you're more about protectionism.
Right. It's that self-ego. I have this thing. I want to keep it to myself. I'm the best at it. Where when you really just like openly share information, everybody has the ability to learn. Everybody has the ability to grow. We don't need to sit back and just, keep things to ourselves.
Yeah, and maybe that's what happened. Why, when I go back in the 1930s, 40s, they did that and we don't know about it.
Right.
Yeah, you don't keep it to yourself. So I guess that's my growth at the moment, is certainly trying to send the information to the next.
The advice that you would give your 25-year-old self was to not keep things to yourself and to share. I know that you've got daughters, right?
A daughter and a son.
Daughter and a son. Yeah. Daughter and a son. What other kind of advice would you give your own kids, knowing the things you know now, similar to share things like that, and this amazing technique that you created to make things better? What other kind of advice would you give to your own kids?
I've had this conversation with my son, because he's a third year chemical engineering at the moment at the university, and what you're studying today, chances are you're not going to be doing in your career path. So just keep an open mind. You may never know what you might stumble yourself into. Right. Pick up that knowledge and kind of just be a well-rounded, well-versed person. I was really focused on being a microbiologist in genetic engineering, and now I'm a master blender of a distillery. I had no idea. Is there a school for master blending? No, there isn't. So whatever career path, enjoy the job. You're going to probably have some jobs at the very start that aren't not, but look at the long path as to where you really
take the lessons you can learn along the way. Yeah. And later on, the paths might intersect and you'll understand why, but
he might be an engineering degree, might not even do that. I did, and that's a struggle for them and I probably struggled the same thing too. Right. Yeah. I wanted to do this, but you never know where things will land. So
yeah, I had a sales teacher that said, what most people do is they take something they love doing, whether it's, arts or engineering or whatever, and they get a career in that field. And then the thing that they love doing, they no longer love doing. And every day seems like a challenge. And he challenged us to kind of open our brain and say, figure out kind of what you want your life to look like, and then try to find a career path that will allow you to do the things that you enjoy doing, but they don't have to. And I was like, that was really an interesting take, because obviously in certain instances, whether you're a lawyer or a doctor or something like that, you kind of need to have that, this is where I want to go because of it. I love it. But there are some of us that we just have to take in information, right? We can only make the best decision we have right now with the information we have at our hands. And so the more information we can get, the better off our decisions are going to be.
Yeah, the funnel.
Just what you said, the funnel.
Want to try the
So what's up next? Yeah, sure.
Try the high rye. Let's do this one here. All right. So I described the whiskey that is like the dish curry chicken.
Okay.
So this is our 10.
This is our 10.
This is lot 40.
Okay.
So lot 40 is 100% rye. So this tends to be an ingredient that I would use in lots of other whiskeys that we make here at the facility.
Okay.
So being 100% rye, this is big, bold, bring it up to the nose. I get an interesting lilac note to it. A lot of fruity characters, nice wood characters. My mindset as a blender is like a chef. So if I know this is going to be a big, bold, spicy style of whiskey, I need to counterbalance it with some sweetness.
Okay.
And the way I bring some sweetness into a whiskey is through the casks and through the barrels.
Okay.
So this one's aged in 100% brand new white oak casks. Okay. The Canadian whiskey, we can reuse casks. So over and again if we want to, or we can use new casks. In the case of lot 40, since it's 100% rye, I'm going to make sure I got some sweetness to balance against that. So it's going to be bold. It sits at 43% ABV. It's readily on the shelf. So if those people who like a whiskey with a little bit of flavor, a little bit of a punch, the high rye bourbon drinkers.
Yeah.
Remember I said the 20. This is 100% rye.
Yeah.
But certainly a high rye bourbon drinker would certainly gravitate to this flavor profile. So,
all right.
cheers to that.
Cheers.
Yeah, we can do cheers. There you go.
Yep.
Certainly a lot more grainy character in that.
Yep, definitely.
I get some white pepper, maybe black pepper as well, some ginger, a little bit of clove. Certainly it's going to end with that long Canadian hug.
Yeah, and it's interesting that you say it's a 10 because my brain goes to like, oh, this is going to be really call it spicy. I don't know if I'm going to be able to handle it because that's just not really my thing. But it's actually still fairly smooth to me.
Yeah, but that's my mindset as a blender. I got to maybe make sure all the ingredients where I'm pulling them in from are going to be in balance, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's unique. Yeah. I don't think I've ever had Lot 40 before.
Yeah. Do you drink cocktails?
Yep.
Old fashions, Manhattans?
No, not really.
Okay, that's usually what
if I'm drinking, I would say if I'm drinking whiskey, it's typically just like, like a whiskey 7, whiskey Coke, whatever. Yeah. Nothing real. My cocktails are more like gins and vodkas and stuff.
Oh, this whiskey here tends to be used in the on-premise in the bartending community where they're looking at a nice bold whiskey to stand up to the vermouth in a Manhattan or the sugar and the orange peels inside of an old fashioned. So this tends to be used as a premium whiskey cocktail.
For that.
If you go to the keg, this is their whiskey they use in their old fashioned.
That's what they use in their old fashioned.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. You know why they call them Manhattans?
I don't.
Do you know the area code of Manhattan?
Nope.
212. 2 parts whiskey, 1 part vermouth, 2 dashes of bitters.
Oh, wow.
That's not true, by the way.
I was going to say, I was like, that would be very unique if that was actually true.
That's a good way to remember it.
Interesting. Okay.
Somebody told me that once and I said, well, that's not going to use that. And I said, wait a minute. The drink Manhattan was made before the telephone.
Right. Yeah. It's been around for quite some time.
We're right beside Detroit. Somebody's got to make a Detroit, right? A 313?
Maybe. Is there one? 313?
No, I don't know. I don't know if there is.
3 parts one, 1 part something else?
Our area code's 519. That's one hell of a cocktail.
Yeah, that would be a big cocktail for sure. So let's talk a little bit about sort of your process in terms of it's infrared with the fermentation, right? How did you come up with that?
I sat on a conference once and somebody was using infrared sensors in another industry. And I said, well, they're using it for that. Why can't we use it for this in the alcohol industry? So we bought it for the purpose of grain analysis. That was the original intent of the instrument. And then I said, well, measure grain, you can measure fermentation. And I just kind of played with it the one day and I said, man, this actually really, really works.
Right.
And when I started in 1996 to measure the full workup analysis of a fermenter, we got 39 fermenters that are actively going, whether they're time 0 or 72 hours. Yeah. It would take me 4 hours to measure one. And so we weren't measuring them all. We just didn't have the bandwidth to do it. We just didn't have the bandwidth to do it. By the time I got the infrared sensor calibrated and working, I could measure all 39 fermenters in 1 hour.
Wow.
So the productivity certainly escalated with the same number of people working in the lab. So really that was incredible within itself, but it allowed us to get good data.
Right.
If I was to say anybody that's in the engineering or production or operations kind of field, the choices you make, it has to be done with good data.
Right.
And if your data is not reliable, then you cannot make good choices. What the NIR allowed us to say, yes, this is dead on. It's accurate. Now what happens if we change this or what happens if we change that? So we inched our productivity up by 3 times over the last 25 years.
Wow.
Just, by doing some simple things off of good data.
Right.
And when I have writers coming into this facility and says, you're getting this kind of yield out of your fermentations. We've never seen a beverage alcohol get anywhere remotely to this. Yeah. And it all started with that piece of equipment
because you used to go test the fermentation. It would take 4 hours
for one
to do one. And you guys had 39.
Yeah, that's right.
Wow.
And then okay, now we got good data. This is what we are. Let's start looking at changing parameters around
Right.
to be able to make whiskey. And a lot of people will come up to me, why are you selling that Weiser's 10-year for $35? If you bought a 10-year-old Scotch, you mentioned you're into Scotch. What's a 10-year-old Scotch cost you? Probably $80 to $120, depending on which brand it is, right? Yeah. But here you can produce and make a good value product. It's because we stopped doing the stupid things.
Right.
Right. So that's what that piece of equipment allowed us to do, is actually change things without even changing the quality of what we're made. Probably made the quality better.
Right.
It really
made it
did.
tighter. So you got everything to the same standard almost.
That's right. And then we started changing. And one of the things people say is that, well, you change your whiskeys and things through your career and things like that, or change what you're doing, or you always made whiskey this way and you should always follow tradition. I'm not. The day you stand still is the day your competitor catches or passes you, right?
100% agree.
So, I'm not changing the flavors. I'm just changing maybe the thought process and how to do things.
Yeah. I've kind of lived by this process for the last probably 15 years of like, you're either growing or you're dying. There is no like stagnation. The moment you stop doing something, you're losing ground on your competitors. You're losing ground on just the things that you did in before.
Absolutely.
Innovation, all of it.
Yeah. And this place has not stood still, or we would not be standing here today.
Right.
160 years later. I mean, the day you stand still is the day you get out-competed on what you're doing.
Absolutely.
And I think we'll see some interesting stuff, because, I mean, I think people are going through a whole craft phase right now, looking for craft whiskeys and things like that. Yeah. But we also see a trend of people coming back to what they're familiar and comfortable with.
Right.
And if you can keep offering good value at a good price, I mean,
yeah, for sure. And so the infrared process, you said NIR?
Yeah, near infrared.
Near infrared. So we went from 4 hours to 1 hour, and then how long did
1 hour for 39.
Sorry, 1 hour for 30. Yeah, 4 hours for one.
Yeah, one is like
1
30
hour
seconds.
For
you can
39.
Yeah.
How long did it take to then say, okay, we're going to change this, change that, to be able to be like, I know what the data shows me.
It's over 20 years.
You've been dialing it in inch by
inch. And then you got to the points that your equipment got limits. So then you got to go back and ask for CapEx.
New equipment.
Yeah, new equipment to get you to the next stage. So there's a couple of times through the 20, 25 year period that, we can't push any more with this big. Should we reinvest? And we did.
Yeah.
And I'm glad to see that Pernod Ricard, who owns us, took the time to invest in this facility. I mean, here for the long term. We're Canada's largest distillery by far.
Right.
And then, one of North America's largest distilleries. Even if it's size, it really do quality things here.
Yeah.
It comes to this, it's still craftsmanship.
It's still amazing to me that we are Canada's largest distillery, and yet many people in Canada have no idea that this place even exists.
Then it comes back to the storytelling. I was just telling you that Canada, for whatever reason, has been slow to the game when it comes to storytelling.
Yeah.
Like at the start of my career, you couldn't give a boy a bottle of Irish whiskey or bourbon
without them knowing.
But they really marched out their master blenders, their master distillers, and told their stories. And people, oh wow, the whiskey's kind of a interesting thing. In Canada, we just didn't do that. I don't know if it's our apologetic nature or what exactly. Why?
Maybe.
I feel like we're changing things here. I can't say for my competitors, but I can say. And we're here at a brand center. We got a brand center.
Right. Yeah. So what is Hiram Walker Distillery? What are you guys reinvesting in right now to continue to make things better?
We're looking at, distilling, new feedstocks that we just normally never have. We're doing, fermenting lots of rum. I don't know if people knew that Malibu rum is made here, but it is.
Yeah.
Lamb's rum is made here, so we're fermenting those. That was new to when I first started. We didn't ferment rum. We got wheat now. We never ever did wheat before. I mean, we're doing some single malts and things like that. So we're investing in new types of distillates. We're investing in equipment that certainly is carbon footprint.
Yep.
Right. So we're trying to reduce that and bringing our energy usage down. So that's kind of the equipment that we've been investing in a long time. And then we're not a young place either. We're investing.
Well, I was going to say, I saw the grain stacks getting repainted and stuff like that. Are you guys, have you always used those?
They've been there since 1940. Yeah. 1940, and they're getting to the end of their life. So they've made the commitment over a number of years to refurbish them. And that's just the nature of doing business too.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. So here at the Experience Center, you guys obviously have a lot of things going on. Mm-hmm. I know I came through a bit of a tour a couple of years ago. Mm-hmm. I'm not sure if you guys still have the tours going on or not. And then you also do like a Whiskey 101, talking about the history and that kind of stuff. Let's talk a little bit about what you guys have going on here to get that story out to the public.
Yeah, so we just have tours based on selective times of the year. So it's all on our website at jpwisers.com. So if summer is probably the better time because that's when people like to do those sorts of things. But we do also do more customized, consumer-oriented things. One of the things that I do is I put on Blending 101, is where I'll grab 70 or 80 different samples from a cask. They can be a cask of different ages, different cask types, different grain types, different distillation methods. All in all, it becomes about 70 to 80 different samples. Right. I line them up on the table. You as a consumer could come in here, $100. It takes about 2 hours to walk through them. And at the end of the night, you can make your own blend.
Oh, wow.
So you can pull out 3 ingredients or you can pull out 33 ingredients. It doesn't matter. You can walk away, make your own blend and custom make and tailor make what you want to do. So you get to play me for a day for $100. And we offer them once a quarter for 20 people. 20 people, okay. Comes on our website at jpwisers.com. You got to be quick. If you see it available, you come and then away you go. I usually do them on a Friday or Saturday night. And away we go. And we also do similar things to like industry people. So I'll do a day event with people like that. Sure. And then we largely start talking about the history of Canadian whiskey, which is very rich. And there's a lot of misinformation I find out there that people don't know about Canadian whiskey. Yeah. I usually start by what do you believe grew Canadian whiskey more than anything else? What was the moment in time that put us on the map?
I would assume that most people would say Prohibition.
That is right. Prohibition is what people would say. Prohibition, you lost your customer. That's not a good scenario. Correct. When you lose your customer.
You're not supposed to sell it. So that's not really the thing that put us on the map.
No, the early distillers, like I said, they were making moonshine and they knew that people didn't like the moonshine. So they reinvented distilling to make a light style of whiskey. And then the most significant event was 1861 to 1865, which was the American Civil War. If you really think about it, whiskey was the most popular drink in the 1860s. Wine is perishable, beer is perishable, whiskey they could transport around. And they drank. And if the American North went to fight the American South, do you think they're going to sell each other whiskey? They would have shut the distilleries down. The men would have went to war. They wouldn't have needed the grain for food. They're making brandy, would have needed the fruit for food. And that left an opportunity for Canadian distillers, and Canadian distillers took advantage of it. And you could see them growing whiskey at the time. So a lot of these original distillers, like I said, they ran a mercantile shop or they were a farmer or et cetera. But if you're making money on whiskey, what are you going to do?
Keep doing it.
You want to make more money. Yeah. And that's exactly what they did. So they started reinvesting back in their distilleries in the 1860s. And in 2017, we celebrated a very significant anniversary in Canada.
2017.
Most people will say the 150.
No.
But we celebrated a 100-year anniversary. It's a 100-year anniversary paying taxes. We as Canadians didn't pay income tax till 1917.
Right.
So we're 50 years a country and we had a government that ran and operated. So who paid the taxes?
Yeah.
In the 1860s, you could see the government putting their fingerprints on the distilling industry. We used to have 60 excise officers on this location to watch every ounce of alcohol being made because Canada was built on whiskey.
Right.
The 5 largest taxpayers were Gooder-Hemmerwarts, Hiram Walker, Wisers, Corby, and Seagram's.
Right.
They built the backs of off the backs of the Whiskey Producers Canada.
Yeah.
And the 1860 was so significant. We just grew and grew. By the time at the end of the decade, we were making over 2 million gallons of whiskey in Canada. 2 million gallons of whiskey 5 million gallons of whiskey. And there's only 2 million people. So you could tell they were selling it all into the U.S.
Right. And it's interesting you say that though, because I think most people especially when they hear taxes, probably think, World War, getting taxes from your citizens to like, machines and bullets and all that stuff and all that kind of stuff. But whiskey is not something they think of.
Definitely the excise tax is certainly what it was. And, we continue on into the 1870s. The world went through a long depression, actually. There was a long depression in the 1870s. And it was one of the reasons why silver was stopped being used as a monetary source of currency around the world. Caused metal prices to decline, grain prices tanked. But what happened, because metal got cheap, that's when they built the railways.
Right.
So you had the new 49,000 kilometers of railway track were built in America and in Canada. So that left a new route to market.
Right.
So what happened? You were on a railway spur. Hiram Walker was very largely associated with railways in Essex County.
Yeah.
You throw your whiskey barrel on the train, you could transport your product to new markets.
Right.
So we saw a contraction. We went from 150 distillers to 19 in that decade.
Whoa.
Well, they pushed out the small.
Right.
If you're on a railway, you could transport. So transportation got your product to market.
Right.
But
you guys still have a railroad that goes straight to here. Does it go to Pike Creek at all?
No, that's all via now.
It's all via now, yeah.
But yeah, the railways are a very significant part to the whiskey industry.
Yeah.
Because that's how you get your barrel. Like, they didn't use bottles.
Right.
What's the purpose of a barrel? The purpose of a barrel is you owned it, you brought it to the Hiram Walker Distillery, you would have filled it up, and you would have took it home and drank it.
Take it home.
You didn't age whiskey. Why would you age whiskey? Cost you money to keep inventory.
Right.
I have to tell you guys that inventory costs money.
Yeah.
They didn't age whiskey. No way. The barrel was the way they could move things around. They didn't have bottles in the 1870s.
Yeah.
But the problem with the barrels is that they would store other stuff in it, like fur, fish, tea. So if you had a barrel that once had fish in it, you brought it back to the distillery.
Probably not very good.
You're going to get fishky.
Yeah.
It doesn't. So that's where they started to burn.
Fishky. That's a good.
Yeah. That's why they started to burn the inside of barrels.
Okay.
You ever wonder why barrels burn? It's because they wanted to eliminate what was in the contents.
What was in it before?
Yeah.
And then it actually started to make things even a little bit
vanilla, caramel toffee notes that we loved in our whiskey today.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Whoa.
That's the perfect. Bottles didn't show up to the 1880s.
Yeah.
And the government intervened one more time and they put all of our whiskey under a bond. That means we didn't have to pay the tax until the bottle was sold to the consumer.
Right.
And that's where, again, I know this is a business oriented. That's when branding started to occur.
Right.
You had a nice, beautiful bottle. Now you could start brand, because it would have been just Hiram Walker's whiskey or Weiser's whiskey.
Right.
Weiser's Red Letter was his first brand. Canadian Club was invented during that time period. Hiram Walker's first whiskey is Hiram Walker Special Old. We still make that today.
Okay.
Still make that today. So that's where brands started in the 1880s.
Right.
And then the 1890s, as we go another decade, I always say to people, we know whiskey's aged. You go in a liquor store, you might ask the price, then you might ask, how old is it? So we all know it has to be aged. Who was the first to age? They weren't doing it. They didn't want to age it because it cost them money.
Yeah.
Canada.
Really?
In 1890.
Wow.
25 years ahead of Scotch, 25 years ahead of Irish whiskey. Canada was the first.
We were already aging it.
Yeah. America was 1907 in the Taft Act.
Why were we the first?
The world is getting smaller. The government had to intervene. Remember, this is the tax dollars to Canada?
Yeah.
We were getting other whiskey and other spirits coming into Canada, eating into the tax dollar lunch.
Oh.
So the government needed to react, and they reacted two ways. They decided to put a tariff. I know tariff's not an ugly word these days, but they put a tariff system on any spirits coming into Canada, and they thought, we better be the best quality in the world. So Canada, you now have to age it. They interviewed Hiram Walker late in his life. He said, I would have never started this distillery.
Right.
Not only do I have to buy stills now and fermenters, now I got to buy barrels and barrel warehouses and sit on inventory.
Right.
Increase JP Weiser's inventory by 20 times. What does that do to a business? Increase inventory by 20 times.
Yeah. It's crippling.
It is very crippling. And you're starting to see new craft distillers start today. They face the same challenge. What's the first thing they're making to try to make money? Something white.
Right.
Vodka, gin, rum, something like that. Whereas what you get in the whiskey business, it's very, very difficult because the cash you need to get you up and running.
Yeah.
But you know what it did? By the year 1900, Canadian whiskey was the largest whiskey category in the world.
Wow.
We outsold everybody. Everybody caught up to us. What happened? Today we're number 4.
Why is that?
I just think we've lost our storytelling ways.
Yeah.
I think that's
why. Storytelling is a big part of, I want to say, any business, right? Even myself in the business I do. Like, if you can't tell a story and convey emotion and understand where you came from, why you're doing it, where you're going, it becomes very hard to continue to grow.
Yeah. I understand where Canadian whiskeys come from and how they put down those recipes. You asked me my legacy. Those Corby and Weisers and Hiram Walker and Gooderham and Warts laid down some rules for me to be able to innovate. So I will always say this. Canadian whiskey is the most innovative, creative, adaptable style of whiskey there is.
Yeah.
All we have to do is be made of grain, fermented, aged, and distilled in Canada, aged in a wooden cask of less than 700 liters for a minimum of 3 years and a minimum of 40% alcohol. That's it.
Right.
They don't tell me I have to use a mash bill like other whiskey categories.
Right.
Corn, rye, wheat. I can make a mash bill. That's up, whatever I want. You don't tell me how to distill it. Column stills, pot stills, any combination. Other whiskey categories tell you exactly how you should do it. And they don't tell me the barrel type. New wood, used wood, cherry barrel, any type of wood.
Yeah.
You know what? That makes Canadian whiskey diverse.
Right.
Isn't that Canada?
Yeah, for sure.
Isn't that Canada? We have a whiskey category that matches us as a nation.
Right.
And it was for those original forefathers that love their legacy for me to continue my legacy and be creative in what I'm doing as a master blender today.
Yeah. Yeah, that's amazing. I mean, we could talk here all day. I love history. So, we are coming to an end. Do we have one more to sort of taste here? So in terms of let's say the legacy, I was just telling, Chris behind the camera, I think I'm just going to go right to the LCBO, buy one, because you guys only made so many cases.
Yeah, once it's gone, it's gone.
Once it's gone, it's gone.
$54.
Can you keep it, for as long as you want after you've bought it?
Yeah. Whiskey doesn't go.
Whiskey doesn't, okay.
It's got indefinite shelf life. So there's not too many foods out there that have indefinite shelf life. But whiskey's one.
Interesting.
So this is the most expensive whiskey we've ever made.
Okay. Oh my gosh. I
feel
very honored here.
JP Weiser's 27-year-old. It's JP Weiser's that's aged in Mizunara casks.
Okay.
So a Mizunara cask is from Japan. Yeah. So Japanese oak. For them to grow a oak tree, or anybody to grow an oak tree for that matter, to make a whiskey barrel from it, at least has to be 100 years old.
Wow.
Right?
Okay.
So what happened in Japan 80 years ago?
80 years ago, atomic bombs.
That's right. So a lot of the vegetation around so it made a little bit of a rarity and scarcity of the oak.
Right.
There are auctions around the world to get Mizunara oak if you can. They're about 20 times the cost of a normal whiskey barrel. So I happened to get my hands on 9 barrels of this.
Wow.
And we finished a 25-year-old whiskey for the last 2 years in the brand new virgin Mizunara cask. So there's many folks out there that will use Mizunara in a way. They'll use inserts inside of a normal cask, or they'll put chips, or they'll reuse, or this is a brand new cask, which you're going to get the full out, on that. So, it is the same recipe as the JP Weiser's 10-year.
Okay. But just put in a different cask.
But it put in the Mizunara cask for the last 2 years.
Interesting.
This sits at 62.1, so it is cask strength. So you got to be careful here on it.
All right.
But I figured if somebody was going to purchase this bottle, I figured they could control the ice or the water so inclined. So
absolutely.
A lot of people when they knows this, you're starting to get the ethanol hit for a second.
Yep.
But then once it kind of settles there and you kind of let it evaporate off the original hit of it, you'll get a nice, beautiful sandalwood. So anybody who works on wood, you'll get certainly that. You get a little bit of a support with the rye in the background, so it almost gives you that Christmas cinnamon kind of flavor profile to it. But again, unique. Only 48 bottles were sold to the LCBO. There are about that kind of many bottles here at our brand center. So
I was going to say, where would a person buy this?
I would say go to jpweisers.com to get if you were looking for it. It's going across Canada. Again, just select bottle, very few bottles across the liquor boards across Canada.
Wow. Well, I feel very privileged to get to try it.
It retails for just under $600. So that's not bad awesome for a 27-year-old.
Not bad.
Mizunara.
For sure.
Cheers. Just be careful on the strength a little bit.
That's really nice.
Yeah.
I really like that.
Not nice.
I must have a very expensive taste.
Yes, maybe you do. Wow. Surprise, surprise, right?
Wow. That's That's fantastic. I don't it's not too strong. It's nice and smooth. It's got nice flavors.
Maybe put a dash of water in it if it's opened up a little bit.
Yeah.
Maybe add an ice cube, let it melt and
ice cube or two. Yeah, maybe. So that's very great. This is a fantastic taste.
Yeah. Oh, thank you very much.
Wow.
Yeah. And again, that's the one-off. I don't have any more Mizunara casks. They're done. So
they're completely done.
They're completely done. But I think this consumers are starting to understand that Canadian whiskey is the quality that it is. And again, in retrospect, in comparison to the other whiskey categories, $600 for a Mizunara 27-year-old is definitely affordable.
Yeah, fantastic. Well, our time's coming up to an end here. We always end asking our guest one question, which I didn't prep you for. What does success mean to Dr. Don Livermore?
I think getting Canadian whiskey on the map. I think that was a theme that we certainly talked about during the interview here. I think we got to make the world's head turn and look at the good quality things that we are doing. We are starting to see signs. People are very interested in the flavor wheel. I do have a couple of books on the history of Canadian whiskey and how Canadian whiskey is made. So I'm on my 4th printing of it. So that's an interesting sign. We're starting to see ultra expensive whiskeys to be delivered around the world. Not to the price of my competitors, but you're starting to see it happen.
Right.
So I think putting the Canadian whiskey, certainly this Hiram Walker Distillery, back on a global stage. I mean, we do some excellent things here.
Yeah.
And I'd like to see us turn that corner and talk about our story. I think we've got a great story to tell.
Yeah. I mean, I didn't hear the story until I moved here, call it 7 years ago, but it's a fantastic one.
Yeah.
And more people need to hear it.
They do. They really do. And really, that's on our shoulders as producers. And I think we're doing things. We got a brand center that's been here now that wasn't here before. So to tell our stories, we're offering Blending 101. We'll offer how unique we are. I think that's what success looks like to me. And I think we see some signs. I mean, I won the world's master blender for the rest of whiskey category. Canadian never won it before. Yeah. So, I mean, it's like signs are there. The signs are there.
And winning an award like that is going to help put Hiram Walker Distillery on the map because more people are going to know.
They're on the map. It's just getting it to where we need on equal footing as our other whiskey category.
Absolutely. Well, thank you very much for the time, letting me go through a little bit of a taste, letting me learn about Canadian whiskey.
Yeah.
I feel like as a Canadian, I should probably do my part, start drinking some more whiskey, Canadian wise. So thank you very much for your time today. I really appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Awesome. Well, listen, guys, you can find us anywhere you normally find us, the podcast, the YouTube. Reach out. I hope you guys enjoyed this conversation as much as I do, even though you guys didn't get to taste any of the alcohol.